Well, good morning. My name is Jeff Landry, and I serve as the Attorney General for the great state of Louisiana. I'm joined by some of my esteemed colleagues, uh, Arkansas's Attorney General Leslie Rutledge and Utah's Attorney General Sean Reyes. We are going to run through 5 major points about why Senator Harris is unfit to be vice president, and then we'll open it up to the questions after. All 3 of the attorney generals, including myself today, have served with Kamala Harris when she was the attorney general of the state of California. She was elected as attorney general in California in 2010 and left that office in 2017, where she was sworn into the United States Senate. During her time as the attorney general in California, she was labeled as one of the most liberal attorney generals in the country. We all know about the failed policies in the state of California. We all recognize, I think quite eloquently, that we do not aspire the United States to be California. However, if we elect a Biden-Harris ticket, that's exactly what the American people are going to get. We are in Salt Lake City today for the vice presidential debate. And we're here to press the case against Kamala Harris so that the American people will understand about her true record. Let me begin. First of all, as the Attorney General of California, she supported extreme environmental policies that would crush families, policies that would increase the cost for middle class America. Number one, she defended the Clean Power Plan. And if Americans remember, that is the plan that would have increased the cost to every household of about $700 per month. That's per month in utility costs. It was estimated to cost over $210 billion, money coming directly out of the pockets of consumers. She opposed fracking. She sued the U.S. Department of Interior for its final environmental assessment that allowed hydraulic fracking. She continued after leaving the Attorney General's office as a U.S. Senator to push radical environmental policies that, again, would crush our job creators and middle class Americans. She co-sponsored the disastrous $93 trillion Green New Deal. She voted against the bill that would have expanded exploration of nuclear energy. Policies that would have reduced costs, energy costs on America rather than increasing it. So she is for increasing household costs for energy. As the vice president, if she did it as the attorney general, she's going and did it as a U.S. senator. These are the types of policies she's going to promote as the vice president. In fact, she has vowed to eliminate all carbon pollution by 2030, a cost to our economy of over $10 trillion. She will expand the job-killing Environmental Protection Agency. And of course, she would be the president of the U.S. Senate if elected as the vice president. Point number 2, she has supported radical illegal immigration policies. As the Attorney General, she led efforts to encourage and expand and decriminalize illegal immigration. She is not for legal immigration, she is for illegal immigration. And of course, she supported these policies as the Attorney General. She supported these policies as a United States Senator, and she will implement these policies if elected as the Vice President. as the Attorney General, she supported the Deferred Action for Children Arrivals, DACA and DAPA, in 2012. She also supported the administration, the Obama-Biden administration at the time, 2014 DAPA, Deferred Action for Parents of America. And again, unconstitutional actions by that administration. These are all policies that have been overruled by our courts. She has an interest in liberalizing immigration policy, expanded beyond the borders of California, as she meddled in the affairs of the state of Arizona as the Attorney General back in 2012. She did nothing to stop California from becoming a sanctuary state. As vice president, she would probably like all states to have sanctuary policies and support those. There is nothing in her record as Attorney General that did not follow her to the U.S. Senate, which again will not follow her to the vice president if Joe Biden is elected president and she is elected vice president. I would now like to bring up to the podium the Attorney General from the state of Utah, Sean Reyes, to go through a couple of additional points in the case that we're making against Senator Harris. Sean.
Thank you, General Landry, former congressman from the great state of Louisiana and the current chairman of our Republican Attorneys General Association here, a tremendous leader. I'm honored to welcome you all to the debate here, whether you're here physically or virtually in the great state of Utah. I'm excited for this debate. I want the American people to hear our Vice President, Mike Pence, make his case for 4 more years. And I'm also excited for the American people to hear Senator Kamala Harris. As the general from Louisiana explained, we're here to share our perspectives on our former colleague, Senator Harris. And the points that I would like to emphasize this morning are about Senator Harris's empowerment of the lawlessness that has taken place throughout America in many cities and the defund the police movement. She has used dangerous rhetoric that has encouraged lawless mobs, rioters, looters, violence that has been destroying American cities over the last many months. You heard in the opening video her own language. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November. They're not going to stop after Election Day. Everyone should take note of that. She's putting America and the world on notice on both levels. They're not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not. This is consistent with the type of rhetoric that we hear from current Democrat attorneys general, some who have tried to pass off violent protests as, quote, peaceful gatherings and peaceful protests, characterize the destruction of these great American cities as, quote, America is burning, but that's how forests grow. In other words, we have to burn down America in order to let it regrow. Senator Harris has had dozens, if not scores, of opportunities to decry this violence, to condemn the rioting and the lawlessness. And other than a single instance that I can think of, her silence on this issue has been deafening. Now, for a moment, let me turn to the defund the police movement. She's expressed support for defunding the police. This is a dangerous movement that puts our law enforcement officers at risk of not having the resources necessary to keep themselves or the communities that they protect safe. Violent crime is rising in most major cities. Over the summer, the Wall Street Journal reported that 36 of the nation's 50 largest cities saw double-digit increases in homicides. In a span of only 6 weeks in June and July, there were 600 murders in 6 Democrat-run cities across the nation. Police are needed now more than ever. Now, taking law enforcement out of our communities, this notion of defunding the police or dismantling the police, particularly vulnerable communities with high crime rates, will put citizens of all backgrounds at a higher risk of being victims of violent crimes. Social workers and AODA counselors are not equipped to intervene when force is needed to stop a violent or potentially deadly situation, such as a homicide or sexual assault. And any law enforcement officer who's been out there on the streets understands how quickly a DV case or how quickly an interaction with an addict can turn violent or even deadly in a split second. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a place for social workers and AODA counselors right here in our state of Utah. We've created mobile crisis units to allow them to go out along with traditional law enforcement. These types of assets and resources work very well with law enforcement, but not in lieu of or in place of law enforcement. Taking law enforcement out of our communities paves the way for anarchy. Look no further than the once proud cities of Seattle and Portland, where political leaders have totally undermined law enforcement's ability to control violent mobs that have often terrorized the city over the last many months. Seattle even saw the infamous Chaz or CHOP areas completely disregarding any local, state, or federal laws and holding residents of that area hostage. This is a reason that many on the Minnesota City Council who had initially supported dismantling the police have expressed their public regret for doing so. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden continue to encourage the most extreme elements of society who want to defund the police, despite cries from law enforcement, community leaders representing a diversity of politics, race, and socioeconomic levels. President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence have not backed down from their support for our nation's law enforcement officers and know that strong communities rely on law and order. At the same time, they've allocated resources and called for police reform that would provide even better training and more transparency for law enforcement. They know community programs can work, as I referenced earlier, after-school programs, restorative justice, a number of other programs in conjunction with complementing law enforcement. It's not a binary choice that Senator Harris would have you believe, that you have to choose one or the other. President Trump and Vice President Pence, and you'll hear this tonight, know that to improve policing, to be able to recruit and hire, retain, and train the highest caliber and quality of law enforcement professional, you can't defund the police. In fact, President Trump and Bernie Sanders both agree with this point. You need to increase funding for the police, while you can increase funding for many of the other social programs that I've referenced. If Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are elected, make no mistake, liberal agitators and Antifa sympathizers who have been leading the riots over the last 4 months have promised to continue their destruction no matter the outcome of the election. Electing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will affect lives and livelihoods across the country. Kamala Harris is a danger to law and order because she refuses to condemn loudly and clearly the lawlessness and the violence that has beset our nation in so many cities. Again, in closing, Kamala Harris wants to defund the police. President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence want to do the opposite. They want to empower and stand with law enforcement while we find ways to make sure that they can protect themselves and the communities that they are charged with defending. Thank you. And now I would like to turn the time over to my colleague from the great state of Arkansas, our former chair of the Republican AG's Association, Leslie Rutledge. General Rutledge.
Thank you, Sean, and good morning to everyone. What an honor it is to be here with my colleagues from Utah and Louisiana as we make the case against Kamala Harris. And what an easy case it is to make when you see how dangerous and divisive Kamala Harris actually is. Her nomination as the Democratic vice presidential nominee speaks volumes to who Joe Biden is actually pandering to. When I came into office as the Arkansas Attorney General in 2015, I knew immediately that the Obama-Biden policies were not working for Americans, and they were not working for Arkansans. And I watched then Attorney General Kamala Harris, her refusal to put Americans first and instead allow for a liberal agenda to destroy businesses through out-of-control regulations such as the EPA's Waters of the U.S. rule and the Department of Labor's overtime rule. But today, I want to make the case against Kamala Harris with regard to wanting to restrict our gun rights and her absolute disregard for the rule of law. Kamala Harris has a record as Attorney General who is absolutely hell-bent on disregarding the protections granted by the Constitution's Second Amendment. She spent the majority of her career being protected by law enforcement officers, whether it was at work, at home, at the office, or while traveling. Yet now she wants to restrict everyday Americans' ability to protect themselves and to have those in law enforcement there to protect us. As you just heard from Sean Reyes, the Attorney General of Utah, Kamala Harris is pushing to defund the police. And she's willing to erode our Second Amendment rights to protect ourselves at the same time. Later this week, I will attend the funeral of a law enforcement officer who was killed in the line of duty in Arkansas. Detective Kevin Collins was attacked because he was a law enforcement officer. Now more than ever, we must defend the police and not defund the police. Kamala Harris fought in court to restrict law-abiding gun owners from their ability to obtain a concealed carry permit. She wanted to force gun owners to show good cause as to why they should have a concealed carry permit. Well, Kamala, I've got a 2-year-old baby girl at home, and if that isn't good cause for me to have a firearm to protect her, I don't know what is. Kamala Harris took the tragedy of Sandy Hook, senseless killing of young children, took that tragedy and tried to turn it into a political narrative to restrict Americans' gun rights, pushing forward a gun confiscation program. The only time that we need a gun confiscation program is among our drug lords and dangerous individuals who she wants to release because we don't have the resources with ICE and our police departments. She supported a 2016 Obama-Biden execution that would expand background checks for private sales. Kamala Harris worked with extreme liberal California legislators to expand the definition of assault weapons to include semi-automatic weapons and detachable magazines. She wants to restrict gun ownership in America. She also has a total disregard for the rule of law. She has made her career constantly ignoring the Constitution and the rule of law. She's pandered to her liberal base. While she led the attorneys general in trying to push forward Merrick Garland's nomination. Now she's refusing to meet with President Trump's nominee and Judge Amy Coney Barrett. And look at the mockery that Senator Harris made during Justice Kavanaugh's nomination process in the hearing. She's refusing, she and Joe Biden are refusing to put forward their short list of SCOTUS nominees. Why won't they put forward a short list? Because they don't want the American people to know exactly how dangerous liberal left judges they will put on the bench. It's time for Kamala Harris to meet with Amy Coney Barrett, and it's time for the U.S. Senate to confirm Judge Amy Coney Barrett on the U.S. Supreme Court. As I said at the beginning, Kamala Harris is dangerous and divisive. She had no business being the Attorney General of California with her disregard for the rule of law. She has no business being a U.S. Senator, and Kamala Harris certainly has no business being the Vice President of the United States to a frail and failing president if Joe Biden were to be elected. Thank you. At this time, I believe that we will, Jeff and Sean, we'll be happy to entertain questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions?
Line from
Okay, Penny?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Weird stuff going on in the audio. So you brought up some really striking points about Harris's record. Do you believe that Mike Pence will have an opportunity to bring up these issues tonight?
I do. I think that tonight the American people are going to be able to truly see the difference between the leadership under President Trump and Vice President Biden and Vice President Pence and what a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration would look like.
Okay. So did you actually meet with him ahead of time to share some of your concerns?
We haven't met with the vice president. Not for debate prep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next question. That's it.
anybody else?
Go ahead.
Sure. I believe that all these points that we have addressed today, whether it's the out of control policies, the Obama administration, we don't need a redo of that in America. Under the President Trump's administration, we have seen increased job growth year after year. Even in the midst of this pandemic, President Trump and Vice President Pence are putting Americans back to work. We can't have a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration coming on the back of what has been one of the most difficult times in American history. Kamala Harris, we're going to see Vice President Pence bring out the liberal decisions of Kamala Harris and how dangerous it would be, again, to have her sitting just one heartbeat away from the presidency.
I concur. I hope to the question that in addition to the issues that we talked about this morning, in addition to the issues that we talked about this morning, that there'll be an emphasis on the economy and the regulatory state, the administrative state. The President Trump and Vice President Pence have done such a good job of helping to dismantle. Another thing that I hope gets coverage is the issue of the peace in the Middle East and incredible gains that this administration has made there. I hope, although I don't believe the moderator will bring it up, maybe Vice President Pence will have a chance to include it, that they might get even a minute to talk about an issue that all of my colleagues have taken a lead on, and that's fighting threats like human trafficking, child exploitation here. And you can't do that by defunding the police. You have to empower them to be able to do their jobs well. the opioid epidemic and some of these other threats. These are signature wins for the administration. Mental health and behavioral health wins, like the creation of a 988 emergency number that's like 911 for physical emergencies, but will now be, once it's all stood up, an incredible lifeline for American citizens. These are points that I wish we'd get a chance to hear. Well, we'll see. I know the vice president is laser focused, talked to his team as recently as like 3 a.m. this morning, and they said he is locked in. I know he's had tremendous debate prep from people like Governor Scott Walker, who've been in helping him prepare. So we're looking forward to a vigorous and exciting debate tonight. Thank you.
Well, because I think that America is at a pivotal point in time. When you look at the amount of violence, the amount of looting and rioting going on in America today, what you see is basically chaos that has been driven by policies that undermine our rule of law. All things run by the left and the Democratic Party, all policies that they support. So I believe that tonight the American people get a great contrast between Vice President Pence and Senator Harris as to what type of policies and what type of people we want running this country. Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.